Welcome. I'm Miguel. Want more insights on health and Stoicism? Subscribe to Stoic Health now and follow along. Have you ever noticed how the word loneliness seems to hover over conversations about growing older? It's almost as if society expects us to fade into the background once we hit a certain age, like that old radio in the corner, still working but rarely tuned in. But here's a question worth pondering. Is being alone the same as being lonely? Let's unpack this together and see what's really going on as the years roll by. Loneliness isn't just a buzzword, it's something many of us feel creeping in at times. Maybe it's the quiet house after the kids have moved out, or the empty chair at the table where a loved one used to sit. Studies show that over 30% of people over 65 report feeling lonely at least once a week. And that's not surprising. Life changes. Friends move away, routines shift, and suddenly the world feels a little smaller. But here's where it gets interesting. Not everyone who's alone feels lonely. Think about Dona Maria, a 78-year-old widow from São Paulo. After her husband passed, she started tending to her garden every morning. She says the plants don't talk back, but they keep her company. She's alone, sure, but lonely? Not quite. The truth is, aging can bring solitude, but it doesn't have to mean despair. Back in the day, our grandparents' generation thrived in tight-knit communities. Think of those Sunday lunches that lasted all afternoon. Today, though, we're more spread out, and that can make isolation feel heavier. But here's the kicker. What if we could flip the script? What if instead of dreading the quiet, we learned to see it as a chance to rediscover ourselves? That's where a Stoic lens comes in, but we'll get to that in a moment. For now, consider this. When was the last time you sat with your own thoughts? Not as a burden, but as a companion. So, loneliness in old age? It's real, no doubt. But it's not the whole story. The question isn't just why we feel it. It's what we do with it. Stick around because next we'll explore how Stoicism turns that solitude into something powerful. What's one thing you've noticed about being alone lately? Let's keep this going. Stoicism as a tool for transformation. So we've faced the reality of loneliness head on. Now let's talk about a way to turn it around, something that's been around for centuries but feels tailor-made for today. Ever heard of Stoicism? It's not about being cold or emotionless, like some statue in a museum. It's about finding calm in the storm, and trust me, it's a game changer for how we see aging. Ready to see how? Let's dive in. Picture this. It's ancient Rome, and a guy named Marcus Aurelius is scribbling in his journal. He's an emperor, sure, but he's also just a man facing life's ups and downs. Sound familiar? He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's Stoicism in a nutshell. It's not about pretending everything's fine. It's about focusing on what you can control. Think about it. You can't stop time from ticking or force people to stick around forever. But your thoughts, your reactions, those are yours to shape. Take Jose, a 70-year-old retiree I heard about. After losing his wife, he felt adrift. Days blurred into each other. Then he stumbled across Stoicism through a library book. He started asking himself, what's in my hands today? Instead of dwelling on what was gone, he focused on brewing his morning coffee just right, or taking a slow walk by the river. Small stuff, sure, but it shifted everything. Research backs this up. Studies from 2023 show mindfulness practices, like those rooted in Stoicism, cut stress in older adults by nearly 25%. Why? Because it pulls you out of the past and plants you in the now. Here's the Stoic secret. Life's going to throw curveballs, aches, losses, quiet days, but you get to decide how they hit you. Feeling lonely? A Stoic might say, that's just a thought. Let it pass like a cloud. It's not magic, it's practice. And the best part, You don't need fancy tools, just a little time and your own mind. Stoicism isn't about escaping loneliness, it's about transforming it into freedom. It's a quiet strength that says, I'm still here and that's enough. So, what's one thing you can control today? Next, we'll get practical with some daily habits to make this real. Stick with me. Daily practices to cultivate inner freedom. All right, we've got the Stoic mindset in our pocket. Control what you can, let go of what you can't. But how do you actually live that day by day when the house feels too quiet or the mirror shows more lines than it used to? Let's talk about some simple habits that turn solitude into strength. These aren't big leaps, just small steps that add up. Curious? Let's get started. First up, start your day with intention. Think of it like tuning an old radio to the right station. Take 5 minutes each morning before the coffee's even ready and ask yourself, what's one thing I can enjoy today? Maybe it's the warmth of the sun on your porch or the taste of that biscuit you've loved since the 70s. Anna, an 82-year-old from Lisbon, swears by this. After her kids moved abroad, she began writing down one good thing every morning. She says it's like planting a seed. By noon, she's already noticing more to smile about. Next, move your body, even just a little. Stoics valued discipline and science agrees. A 2024 study found that 15 minutes of gentle walking boosts mood in folks over 65 by 20%. No gym required. Stroll around the block or sway to some Sinatra in the living room. It's not about breaking records. It's about reminding yourself you're still in the game. Pair that with a deep breath or two. Inhale for 4, exhale for 6. It's a Stoic trick to calm the mind when it starts racing. And here's a quiet gem. Reflect at night. Grab a notebook or even an old napkin and jot down one thing you handled well today. Spilled the tea but didn't curse the world. That's a win. Marcus Aurelius did this, and it kept him grounded. It's not about bragging, it's about seeing your own strength. Over time, you'll notice the loneliness doesn't sting as much. It's just there, like background noise while you're busy living. These habits, intention, movement, reflection, aren't flashy, but they're yours to wield. They're how you take a Stoic idea and make it real, turning a lonely moment into a free one. Ever tried something like this? Next, we'll talk about weaving in connections without losing that independence. Stay tuned. Meaningful connections in maturity. So, we've built a Stoic toolkit, facing loneliness, shifting our mindset, and adding daily habits that ground us. But what about other people? Does being a Stoic mean shutting the world out and sitting alone with your thoughts forever? Not at all. Let's explore how to balance that inner freedom with connections that matter, because aging doesn't mean you stop being human. Ready? Here we go. Stoicism teaches us to value what's in our control, but it doesn't ignore the good that comes from others. Think of it like a garden. You tend your own soil, but a little rain from outside helps things grow. Take Carlos, a 75-year-old from Rio. After retiring, he felt cut off. Friends drifted and family was busy. Instead of waiting for someone to knock, he started showing up at a local chess club. He didn't need a crowd, just a couple of familiar faces to trade moves and stories with. Now, he's got a standing game every Wednesday. It's not about clinging, it's about sharing a moment. Here's the trick, keep it simple and intentional. You don't need a packed social calendar. Quality beats quantity. Call an old friend for a 10-minute chat or wave to the neighbor you've seen watering her plants for years. Studies from 2025 show even brief interactions like these cut feelings of isolation in older adults by 15%. And if you're thinking, but I'm fine on my own, that's the Stoic beauty. You don't need anyone, but you can still enjoy them. A Stoic might say, love others, but don't depend on them for your peace. So try this. Next time you're with someone, really listen. Don't just nod while planning your grocery list. Ask a question like, what's one thing you've learned lately? It's a small bridge, not a burden, and if they're not around, that's okay. Your freedom's still intact, rooted in those habits we talked about. Connections in maturity aren't about filling a void, they're about adding color to a life you've already made strong. You've got the tools to stand alone and reach out. So, what's one connection you'd like to spark or rekindle? Let's wrap this up next with a big picture look. Keep going with me. We've walked through it all. Loneliness isn't the end game, it's a doorway. With Stoicism, you can see aging as freedom, not a sentence. From facing the quiet, embracing a new mindset, building daily strength, to weaving in meaningful ties, you're in the driver's seat. Try one thing from this today, maybe that morning question or a quick call. Like this? Hit that like button, share it with someone who gets it, or drop a comment with your thoughts. Let's keep the conversation alive, because growing older, it's your story to write.